Hello, economics students. Okay, so let's dig a little bit deeper into this thing called the market. Because as I said, economists love markets and they love them as a tool to allocate resources. Now remember, there's two sides to every market. We have a demand side and we have a supply side. And the way that we look at each side is a little bit different. So we're going to split them into two for now. We're going to start by thinking about the demand side. Okay, and I think demand's the easiest, and that's why we're starting with it, because most of the time when we think about demand, we're really just thinking about how consumers behave, how you and I behave when we go to the supermarket or 7-Eleven and buy a Slurpee. Okay, a point of extension, sometimes when we think about demand, we're actually thinking about it from a business's perspective, and we call that the resource market. Have a think about that. But businesses buy resources from the resource market. All right, back to just consumers for now. Let's dig in. Firstly, you'll see that they call it the theory of the law of demand. Now, that's a little bit confusing. The reason we're calling it a theory, I think the writers of the new study decided that, well, it's not actually a law because it doesn't always hold up. It doesn't always hold true, so it can't be a law. Let's get back to that in a second. So firstly, the theory or the law of demand is that as prices rise for a particular product, we want to buy less of it, right? That makes sense. I think as consumers we can understand that. We call this an inverse relationship. And it's really just a fancy way of saying that the price of a product and the amount we buy move in opposite directions. If price goes up, we buy less. If price goes down, we buy more. There are some exceptions to this, which is again why we call it the theory. There's a good called, or a type of product called, a Veblen good. You can look it up. It's not part of the Year 12 course. It's named after an old economist, and we're basically talking about luxury goods. The higher the price, the more certain people want them. Okay, so let's get back to normal goods. So we're going to look at this relationship graphically in a moment on a demand and supply curve, but let's get very specific. Quantity demanded is how much someone's willing and able to buy, or how much a group of people are willing and able to buy. Everyone is willing and able to buy at a certain price. It's not just wanting it or desiring it. It's if we had a blind auction and we surveyed you how much you'd buy as a class of a certain product and you actually had to pay that amount, how much would you buy at each price? That's what it is. Now the law or the theory states that as P, price, increases, quantity demanded or QD decreases. All right, let's look at this graphically. So let's check, because sometimes we can get a little bit confused. So as the price increases over here on the x-axis, and remember, this is just showing the price at 0 down here, increasing as high as we like. And I think that'll disappear in a second. There it will. So as prices increase, let's say from $1 to $2, well, we're going to say that quantity demanded decreases. And we're eventually going to call this a contraction along the demand curve. You can also see that the demand curve is downward sloping. When we look at it from left to right, it's pointing down. A lot of the textbooks say it's downward sloping. I don't know that really helps. And also remember that quantity on the x-axis here, we're starting at 0 and we're increasing to, infinity. Now, why is this the case? Why is the law of demand? Why does the theory of demand hold true? Now, the first reason is something called the income effect. Okay, now the income effect is exactly as it sounds. We want to think if we have a fixed amount of income. My boss is very sympathetic when prices rise, but she doesn't, or a price of a particular good or service rises, but she's not going to give me a pay rise just because 7-Eleven put the Slurpee price up or the coffee price up. So if we assume that we have a fixed income, which most people do most of the time, then as the price of a particular good increases, we will buy less of it because it takes up more of our income. And we can afford less, right? Because of our fixed income. So let's use a specific example. If my coffee budget was $10 a week and that used to buy me 10 coffees, amazing. Past tense, used to buy me. Then the price went up to $2. Damn you 7-Eleven. Damn inflation and supply side issues. We'll talk about that later. But that's assuming that I don't get a pay rise and my income stays the same and my coffee budget stays relatively the same, then the $10 now affords me much less coffees, doesn't it? It affords me 5 if you want to get technical, okay? So the quantity demanded over here decreases. So as the price increases here, the quantity demanded decreases, as I showed you just before. Okay, less coffee is being purchased because of the higher price. The other reason is what we call the substitution effect. Now, what happens here is as the price of coffee rises, I'm thinking, me and other consumers like me are thinking, the price of coffee is $2. What else could I get that might satisfy the same need or want? And that's literally what happens. We will substitute, we'll buy something similar, which satisfies the same need or want, that is relatively cheaper. So me personally, I'm trying to get off the coffees now because I drink too much of it. I'm going to substitute to a banana because that hasn't increased its price. And it's relatively cheaper. Okay? So again, that will lead to less coffees being purchased. All right? Substitution away from the product which has an increase in price. Okay, so there's two reasons for the theory or the law of demand, the substitution effect and the income effect, and you need to know them in the new study design. If you've got any questions, let me know. Bye for now.